Well, so we've talked a little bit today about All Saints Day, but I want to give you a little history. I know this is a little different from some of the sermons that we've done before, but I think it is vital to knowing our heritage, who we are, and what we really should be celebrating. See, Halloween, right from the beginning, was a Christian holiday. How many here actually knew that? Have a couple? All right. Well, All Hallows, or Hallowmas, means All Saints, and Mass means Mass. It started as a day to honor the martyrs that died for the sake of the church and for Christ. Now, through the years, it continued to gain popularity, and the origin of the festival of All Saints' Day, as celebrated in the West, dates all the way back to May 13th, 609 AD. That was in Rome. So think back to that. We're in 2015. This goes all the way back to 609. Hoping to bring Christian influence to the pagans, they chose a joint day with one of the pagan holidays. In a sense, they wanted to influence or convert those in life to live a life of Christ with the festivals. Now, you may be scratching your head going, now wait a minute. May 13th? I thought it was October 31st. Well, in 731 AD, fast forward about 130 years ago, it was Pope Gregory III who moved it to November 1 to recognize the holy apostles and martyrs and saints. As far as we could tell, though, this is the interesting thing, the pagan holiday in May 13th moved with the Christian holiday to November 1. And some call it Reformation Day. Have you heard that name? If you're Lutheran, you would. They celebrate that every year. Now, we talk about how our spouses can really influence things. Well, in 886, there was a Byzantine emperor by the name of Leo VI, who was called the Wise. You know why? Because he knew how to deal with his wife and to keep her happy. A man who can do that is a wise man, let me tell you. Anyway, he built a church, intending to dedicate it to his wife, but she forbade him to do so. So he, being the wise man that he was, decided to dedicate it to all the saints, so that if his wife were one of the righteous, she would be honored whenever the feast was celebrated. This was when the holiday was expanded from all martyrs to all saints. Yes, one happy wife and one very smart man. So why the history lesson? I think it's important that we go back and we look at our past and our heritage to see what direction that we've actually come from so we know where we're going. See, the term Halloween is referring to the eve of All Hallows, or All Saints' Day. And it wasn't until just the last 2 centuries that the two holidays blurred together and secularism won out. It has taken the term Halloween and associated it completely with the pagan holiday, completely ignoring the sacred day that we should be cherishing and observing every year. And that's really what started it all. Well, get this, the first costume did not even show up until the early 1900s. And according to the research that I found, it was only in America. And in 1930, the first costumes were sold in stores. The encyclopedia tells us that it was not until 1950 that we even started trick or treating. This holiday started, what did I say, in 500 AD? And yet, 1950, costumes trick or treating. And All Saints' Day, gone. I didn't realize that that was so recent of a thing. In the year 2000, Halloween was the 3rd largest grossing holiday. Now it's the #1 candy holiday, followed by Easter and Valentine's. In fact, I love this little snippet when I found this last night. 35 million pounds of candy corn. You like this, Ashley. You love candy corn. Her eyes are already popping. 35 million pounds of candy corn go on sale each autumn, and if you laid them piece end to end, it could circle the moon 20 times. Wrap your mind around that. Why? I don't even like candy corn, so that's not a big deal to me. Now, if they said Snickers, it might have been different. Last year, Americans spent more on costumes than candy. But then, the old $2 masks and the $5 plastic suits that we used to have, they just don't cut it anymore. Altogether, the U.S. will spend $8 billion on Halloween. The sad thing is, that's ranked only 8th in the line of consumer spending for holidays. I had to put this in there because this is the #1 slot, should be the obvious, winter holiday season. It's not even Christmas anymore, folks. Now it's winter holiday season with $586 billion. We thought 8 seemed like a lot. Then the next one I thought was a jaw-dropper for me. It was back to school shopping. And then Valentine's Day, Easter, Super Bowl ranks even above. And then Halloween is on 8th. I read in Europe where they still celebrate All Saints Day. This is sacred to them. They go to the cemeteries, and it was a very solemn celebration of remembrance. But guess what even Europe has done? Now, it is lined up with nothing but vendors all day long. You can buy anything you want to decorate your headstone. You can buy any kind of food item you may even want. They even have vendors setting up next to the headstones. I find this interesting as the holiday started as a celebration to Christian martyrs. The starting and preserving of the church. The actual sharing and spreading of the gospel. And it was celebrated to those who gave their lives for what they held dear. How are we celebrating this holiday to today? How many people here even really know in America what the true holiday is even about? If I were to ask you right now, who are the saints, if you weren't listening to the children's sermon, how many people would have included yourself? Most of us look at ourselves and we look in the mirror and we go, I'm no saint. Because what do we think of with a saint? We think of somebody, I guess, who's been put into a statue mold. Somebody who's lived a perfect life. That's impossible. We are all sinners. We are all fall short of the glory of God. But if we love Jesus, if we hold him dear in our hearts, we are saints. I want to let that register for just a minute. Because I know for some, that's like a really pow moment. And that may even change how you think a little, how you talk a little, and how you relate to others when you start thinking of yourself as a saint. Well, in my opinion, we really need to let people know what the true meaning of Halloween is, because it is not the one that's been reinvented by Hollywood through the years. It is a precious celebration that has so much rich heritage that makes us a unified body in Christ. We're going to be looking in November. I don't know if you guys do a Heritage Sunday, but I just love that at the church, the first church I served. Every year, they would pick a Sunday as their Heritage Sunday. And that was so neat to go back and be reminded of the men and women who had sacrificed and what they had done to keep that church alive. And you have a fantastic record-keeping and scrapbook system. I was trying to go through some of it, and it is almost overwhelming. And Rusty had given me one of your old directories, and it was fun to read the history of this church, the making of this congregation, the sacrifices, the blood, sweat, and tears that was poured into not only the old church, but the next church. Constantly saints who were striving to spread the word. They would buy another piece of property to turn it into a Sunday school room. And then they didn't have room, so they buy another piece of property. And they still didn't have room, so then they dug out a basement under the church because they still didn't have room. And then when things started to look bleak for the building, they had a choice. They could either combine with another congregation who had a sturdier structure, or they could take a huge leap of faith, take out a loan, and build this church. Well, obviously, if you're sitting here today, you know what the decision was. It was that leap of faith. It was that beacon to everybody in the community. We are disciples of Christ. We are Christians who are committed to spreading that gospel message around to our neighbors. This is the day that we celebrate. November 1st. This is the day that we share with all of those men and women that we hold dear in our hearts that were part of this congregation and congregations around that have passed. Those who've made marks in history. Those who have literally given their life to share that gospel. As I was thinking about this whole $8 billion thing for Halloween, I thought to myself, isn't it ironic that in the same commercial they're showing spending all this money on candy, and the next commercial was Subway. How many have seen the National Sandwich Day advertisement? You have? Okay, there's a few. No, I don't work for Subway, but I thought this was the coolest idea. November 3rd, which is Tuesday, is National Sandwich Day, and what Subway is doing, if you go on and you buy a foot-long sandwich in a 32-ounce drink, they will give you a foot-long sandwich free to give away. Wow! I thought to myself, I wonder how many people will be going to Subway to buy sandwiches, to give sandwiches away. Probably not very many, as they will still be rubbing the wounds of the hole left from all the money that was spent on candy for Halloween. For kids who honestly didn't need it. I had 2 of them. Every time I go up by Walmart and the interstate, I see person after person after person who's been walking. The living water, as you know, that you so faithfully support, is full of men and women who are hungry, not just physically, but spiritually. If you were to go buy a sandwich and get a sandwich free, that recipient that you gave it to would be fed in so many ways. So many ways more so than any Snickers bar or Reese's peanut butter cup could ever do. I love this concept. When we take the moment to think of ourselves as saints, to wrap our minds around what it means to be that living saint that's sharing the gospel, that's being the hands and feet of Jesus. It makes us stop to think about our priorities and what we're spending our money on, what we're celebrating, and what we're really trying to promote. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Halloween. I have nothing against kids dressing up in cute little suits and going to get candy. My kids have been doing it for years. But when I look at the staggering numbers of $8 billion, think of the mission work that can be done with that money, telling them about Jesus. So get your little mints up, look at the little verse on it, and know that when you're eating that candy, you're actually getting the sweet treat of Jesus. Amen.